Just Paul with you. It is 3 minutes past noon, and I am joined live in the studio now. Supervisor Chris Howard. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing terrific, and good afternoon.
It's a beautiful day out there. Thanks for bringing the milk. I appreciate that. That's
hey, anything to advertise in our area.
that's you got to go door to door with the
eggs and milk. I'm all about that.
That's kind of analogous to the chicken in every pot campaign promise. Classically, you get from American politicians. That's great.
I think you're right about that.
So here we are, and how long have you been actively campaigning for this upcoming June election?
February. I dug in my heels and started rocking and rolling.
That's this is your first campaign, right?
It certainly is.
Mm-hmm. What do you think?
Well, I could tell you one thing. It's a whole different world being out there, making sure that you're crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's to ensure that your campaign's going well and you're getting feedback from your constituents, which is the most important piece.
And District 3, just outline for folks, because I have a rough idea what District 3 is, what the physical extents are of District 3. But what is your district in Delaware County? What do you cover?
It is absolutely massive.
It's the biggest one, right?
It is the biggest one. We basically take ourselves from the Oregon border up there in Brookings all the way south until we hit Highway 101 bridge. We do cross that bridge and we'll run ourselves all the way down to Wonder Stump.
Okay.
And then travel down Wonder Stump all the way to Elk Valley Crossroads and take in the east side of that. That would be District 3. Then you travel down Elk Valley Crossroads, come around Elk Valley Crossroads right there, circle all the way over to Parkway. That is still District 3 on the north side of that. On the south side would be District 5, Bob Berkowitz's district.
Okay.
So come up 199 and start traversing all the way out to the Collier Tunnel. Again, all the Forest Service land, all the national park, all the state park lands out there are District 3. Hyuchi, Gasky, Smith River, Kings Valley Road, Wonder Stump. That would be District 3. It's absolutely massive.
All the way to the border then?
All the way to the border.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's a lot of diversity of folks, great communities to be part of.
And you've got exactly. And actually, I used to live back up in the hills right there, and you were our supervisor for a while. And it's such a disparate, just an array of interests then, depending on where you are. If you live down, say, on Elk Valley Crossroads, or if you live in Gasky. I mean, you've got a whole different, sort of a lot more different voices coming in and people who are concerned with what's happening in their district than somebody who has a district in town or a district just down here. I mean,
and quite possibly. But, what I found out there, and I've door knocked a lot during this campaign, District 3 voters are engaged, and they're engaged quite a bit. They tend to be ones that want to know what's going on and, more importantly, give you feedback. That really helps us, whether you're a person running against me or myself, to get an idea on the pulse of Delaware County and where they want to go.
How much of your job as a supervisor in Delaware County, and this is, I guess, for all the supervisors, how much is district specific? I mean, because you kind of catch everything from all over, right?
It can be quite a bit at times.
Can it?
We really focus on the items that are going to kind of crosswalk all the districts.
Yeah.
But there tends to be district-specific problems. For example, we had a recent one where the Gasky Fire Protection District had a radio tower go down. That radio tower had been down for a couple weeks, and we basically debated with the Gasky Fire Protection District, whose responsibility was it to pay this? Well, we had to go back and do some research, found out that an old contract with the Sheriff's Department had the maintenance requirements per se for this, but the Gasky Fire Protection District was supposed to supplement the dispatch to pay for that service.
Okay.
Anyways, time goes by, that's lost. But the communication took place where one of their volunteers reached out to us and said, hey, what can you help us do about this? And I said, okay, let me check into it. This is where a supervisor comes in. We could get some immediate response, look to talk to the right people. I contact Sheriff Apperson. Sheriff Apperson goes, whoa, yeah, this is a problem. We have emergency services being provided by a repeater up and down the 199 corridor, provided outside the Camp 6 area. This needs to be fixed and needs to be fixed now. Sheriff Apperson, being Johnny on the spot, picks up the phone, calls the folks that service that equipment. They're out there by 2 o'clock that afternoon.
Wow, that's beautiful.
So things happen, things rock and roll, but those are more of the site-specific examples for District 3.
Now, and there are, of course, so many things that you have to deal with and take heat. Take heat from all over the county for. What is your take? Because this is something, it's on the front page of the paper. It was the first question I sent you. What is your take on the Tolowa land bill? What's happening here? And what should we be concerned with moving forward?
Sure.
There have been a lot of things, as I think you say in the article, a lot of misinformation out there and people who just kind of go,
There
whoa.
is. And people have a right to be concerned.
Sure.
Because if they're getting secondhand and third-hand information from social media, which really drove the firestorm around this piece, and the way it was released from Congressman Huffman's office, you have nothing but opinion to base your facts on. And that's not the way folks should be approaching this issue. They actually should go out and educate themselves and actually read the draft discussion language of that legislation proposed by Congressman Huffman. But in essence, this was what they call a discussion bill. So you go out and you are an advocate for a particular thing, in this case, the Tolowa Dini Nation. They're advocating for a mechanism to allow their fee lands to become trust lands quicker.
Yeah, and that's the thrust of the whole thing. I went back, I read Huffman with
terrific.
I read all of that and still had so many questions because it changes an existing thing, an existing dynamic that I didn't know. So
Correct.
The whole fee to trust mechanism. Then what exactly? And I don't want to get drilled down into a question that might be better asked to somebody from the Tolowa, but what does that entail?
So in essence, what that entails is allowing those properties to go from fee title, where they pay property tax to the county, into trust, where no property tax is collected.
Okay.
It was the very reason why, before my time, the county came up with what we call a no net loss policy.
Exactly. Now who holds that trust? Is it federally held then? Or
it is federally held by the Bureau of Indian Affairs.
But basically, that's the same as if they were turning it into a state park or a federal or a national park. You don't.
However, with those transfers, generally, whether it's state park, national park, Forest Service, or even Department of Fish and Wildlife lands that we have here, like Lake Earl, for example. Generally, along with those transfers comes what we call PILT dollars, payment in lieu of taxes. Okay, so those dollars, we will see the property tax revenues, in essence, come back into our coffers with that mechanism annually. Now, sometimes when the state of California is down, Governor Brown might make a decision, as he did in 2008, to pull those PILT dollars back and hold them. But we still get PILT dollars from the feds, for instance. But we've argued for years through our advocacy boards like the California State Association of Counties and RCRC to ensure that every time a bill goes before the state of California, those PILT dollars are included in that legislation.
A quick question: Do we often see a 1-to-1 sort of equation between PILT dollars and what was lost from the tax rolls? Wow, that's interesting. They don't try to undercut.
No.
Wow. Okay. That's good. That's good to know. So there's nothing in this bill now, or this proposed legislation.
It's a discussion draft.
Exactly. So it's not even.
So they're trying to essentially, what Congressman Huffman's doing is trying to get the temperature of the community in response to the legislation. This has, as he said in his newspaper article, we want your opinion, we want your comment. So it's appropriate, like the Board of Supervisors did on Tuesday, to comment on that discussion draft.
And this is kind of the same thing he did with the Yurok land legislation that he worked
absolutely.
with.
And we do the same thing with Elk Valley Rancheria. We do have 4 federally recognized tribes here in Del Norte County.
Wow. Yeah, that's true. People forget. The 4. That's right. This was something that I saw that was okay. So there's somebody who is often a critic of you. And
Never.
I have her on the radio a lot because I love Linda Sutter. There's just something kind of, it's fun. I like having, and she's good radio, and she's got voices, and she impersonates people. It's just hilarious.
Actual voices?
She has voices that she's got a Berkowitz voice. I don't know if she has a Chris Howard, but I'll have to find out.
Yeah, we'll work on that.
One thing she said was that this comes out, the Tolowa bill, the draft from Huffman, and that you guys, she blamed or said that you and Jerry had known about this for months, and this was just a way that you were keeping it from the public. But that's not what happened here. This is not a done deal. This is a discussion that's ongoing.
It's a discussion that's ongoing, and if Jerry and I had something to give the public, and more importantly, give the board with language, we certainly would have done so.
Yeah.
But their idea, in this case, what the tribe proposed to us in January was, we want to draft legislation, and we're going to work with the congressman to do that. That's great. That's what was reported out.
Yeah.
But in essence, as you saw with this firestorm, it was not necessarily a focus on the Tolowa Dini Nation. It was a focus on Jerry and Chris in the campaign election year to say, you guys didn't tell the community something, which was entirely not the case.
Yeah.
It creates a wedge issue and a firestorm. In this case, allows us to go out and kind of treat the problem the way it needs to be treated, which is in a transparent manner. And we often don't get that in politics. Often the rumor mill flies. In this case, I think it was very destructive to a certain extent with the Tolowadini Nation. They certainly did not want that to happen.
Yeah.
They have been incredible community partners for us out there.
And exactly. And it's and I think who was it? Was it Jessica or Tony? Jessica, who wrote this too, and in this article comes up just how much the county depends on Tolowa involvement, engagement, money to pay for things, to take care of things that I think it was you that brought up in the article the North County sheriff's deputy who's out there.
Sure, Wade Owen.
That's funded.
Wade Owen, yeah, absolutely funded 100%.
That's
shift. And that's just one of many examples where the Tolowadini Nations come in. But we also have right next door here to this studio, the Elk Valley Rancheria, who's been another great partner here in the community. And they've gone about fixing every lift station from the Birch Ocean View tract all the way to our sewer treatment station.
Wow.
At a cost of over $700,000.
Wow.
That was money that the city and the county would have never realized without the federal dollars they brought into that program. They didn't need to do it. Absolutely didn't need to do it.
And what I saw online with the Tolowa bill, with the legislation, was people just see this, they assume it's a bill, they read the headline, and then they have an opinion.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you've got to delve into these things.
Yeah, and it's delicate. People need to have an opinion, they need to be educated, and more importantly, needs to be transparent so they can weigh in. But do it in a way that allows our neighbors to have a voice, and more importantly, weigh in a way that's not going to offend. Yeah. And we have a very difficult time doing that sometimes when the rumor mill begins to fly.
That's true. Yeah.
And I, for one, want to see these relationships maintained. It's a very important part of our government process. And especially when you're in a county that has very limited resources, maintaining relationships with the Yurok tribe, maintaining relationships with the Rezagini Rancheria, maintaining it with Elk Valley Rancheria, and maintaining it with Tolowadini Nation, who has, on top of what they've done for us with their efforts around Rowdy Creek Fish Hatchery, their efforts around Wade Owen, as we've discussed, and their efforts around traffic calming from the Highway 101 area all the way up to the state line. Yeah. It's critical to developing this community's infrastructure.
And I had no idea they were also planning affordable, like a low-income housing.
Correct.
They really want to take care of people.
They do.
That's wonderful. So this is a complicated issue. It is ongoing. Do you feel like the air has been cleared enough that people understand a little better now after the new? I mean, it's soon. This just came out in the paper. But do you think folks are walking back from seeing it as a Tolowa land grab and all of the crazy things that were on?
I don't know. This discussion will be around for a long time.
Yeah.
We've been discussing it for quite a long time, almost 2.5 years now with the Yurok tribe. Similar type legislation. So this is a beginning. Hopefully all the agencies, in this case, whether it's your community service district or the Del Norte County, hopefully we'll get our words in. Congressman Huffman will listen. And in case we'll be able to negotiate something fair for both of us.
I was happy to see that you guys at this meeting this week sending the cannabis tax, putting it on the ballot.
Yeah,
right?
quite a discussion.
I have yet to watch the discussion. I'm sorry I did not do that research.
Didn't do your homework.
I didn't do all of the homework.
There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
So, and in fact, I got hung up reading about the guy who was arrested for walking his dog in the Redwoods, and then reading about the Tolowa bill. I haven't even read this one. So where does it stand now then?
So that will go to the voters in November.
Okay,
that's a huge piece.
And that is the now. Is this the tax? Is this a commercial tax, or is it like a tax on growing, a tax on production?
Both.
Okay, good.
Yeah, both. And it was very comprehensive. I think Joel Campbell Blair and our working group really did a great job at coming to the county with something that we could work with. In this case, an ordinance that's going to, for those that really feel that cannabis is not such a great thing, like Supervisor Gitlin, this is something that he could sink his teeth into. Because even if we don't get the other pieces of our ordinances out, whether it's on the retail side, whether it's on the commercial side, whether it's on track and trace, this tax will allow us to go after those properties that don't come into compliance with our ordinances and our regulations. And I see you having that puzzled look on your face.
What do you mean by go after? Isn't it just applied to them as well?
Okay, so let's say that you are an illegal grow.
Okay.
And let's take the example of Jesse Davis, who's been compliant. He's been the chair. He's a guy that wants to have a commercial operation that's legal, regulated by the county. And yet we know we have 110 potential illegal grows in the county as they sit right now.
I saw that number from
Okay,
Eric.
so how do you deal with that? If you have a sheriff that was in an office before Sheriff Apperson had to take care of this problem for a 12-year period, Sheriff Apperson in there now, 3.5 years, have we been able to deal with 110 illegal grows? That's the question you have to ask yourself. And if they haven't, why? For many of us, it's a feeling we don't have the resources here in Del Norte County to address that.
Okay.
So how do you now bring folks into compliance? If they're not going to follow the regulation under the ordinances that we hope to pass before the end of December, how do we bring them in? The sheriff hasn't been able to deal with it. Code enforcement's hands are tied. Maybe they don't have enough money. Why don't we use a tax? If they're not paying a tax on that illegal grow, then it gives our tax collector potentially the opportunity now to lien the property.
Okay. Are there, and maybe this is a question for Joel or for somebody, I don't know, is it lawful to tax an illegal activity?
Yes. And matter of fact, this has been studied by RCRC, and Arthur has actually taken a look at that. He's their legal counsel for RCRC, and they've taken a great long look at this and the legitimacy of actually being able to do that under state law. And so that is the mechanism that is being proposed here to kind of bring the hammer down, so to speak, on those illegal grows. It should be making everybody, at least the 40+% that didn't support legalization of cannabis in Del Norte County, extremely happy that now we have a tool to address this illegal grow issue.
Yeah. So what happens though if you get this done, but you don't have, if you don't give them? Okay, this is the part that seems unfair about that. Let's say you get the taxes. They're voted. They're passed. We have these taxes. They go into play. You can use them then against these illegal grows. If there isn't an avenue available for them to become legal, then you're just putting them out of business.
And that's the catch-22, right? So let's say we go through all this work. We pass the personal use ordinance, which will be on our agenda pretty soon. We get to this next piece that the working group's really working diligently on, which is the retail piece. And we get through that and we get to a vote that says, oh, only 3 of us want this, 2 of us don't. That's gets into your situation where this is not fair. The same with commercial. Let's say we get down the road with that. We finally get to the point of passing commercial ordinance, but we only have 3 votes out of the 5. That won't pass either. But the voters put in this tax measure. Well, then now everything's illegal. Yeah,
exactly.
So it could be an absolute catch-22.
So this leads into every other question I sent you. So
it sure does.
Let's start with the cannabis issues with this and what happened earlier this year with Bob and Roger and the whole big deal, the whole big thing. Thankfully, it didn't seem like in that window that the sky fell. We had basically 2 local folks get licenses from the state while the ban was suspended.
Yeah, and 7 or 8 other applications that went in.
Okay. They went in, but were they approved? They
were not approved.
Okay.
They were not approved by the state.
Whatever reason.
Yeah, I'm not sure exact sequence on how that happened, but there was more than just the ones that came in.
Okay. The ones that did come in are local. It doesn't seem like they're out there trying to take advantage or ruin our property values or do any of the things that were some of the fears that would happen during the
Correct.
And so that's good. That's a good thing. The sky didn't fall. But at the same time, it derailed everything. It set everything back a little bit.
It did.
And so now we're under this January 1st, 2019 deadline where am I correct in this?
Correct.
That if we do not have ordinances in place, then everything is illegal.
It's quite possible, but not everything.
Okay.
So as you know, we're taking this piecemeal. And so the working group's point and what is on the Planning Commission's agenda right now is to approve this personal use piece. That should be on the board's agenda here at this next meeting. We get that through. That's one piece of an ordinance specific to cannabis use. And the next thing that they wanted to tackle was taxation. The reason they tackled that next is because we needed to go on to the November ballot.
There's time constraints.
There was absolutely time constraint. The next piece of that was retail. Now they've taken that back up. They're almost there. hopefully we'll see that in June, if not sooner, rolling that piece out. We'll know pretty quick with the rollout of that retail ordinance where the vibe of the board is on that decision-making process.
Will you know before the June 5th election?
God, I would hope so.
And so is that the kind of bellwether then? Is that the canary in the coal mine? Is how the retail ordinance will fare before the board?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. I think that would be our first big bellwether. I don't see the personal use ordinance getting there.
Okay.
Under Prop 64, that was clearly addressed, the personal use. There's very little that the county could do to prohibit the personal use and grow of those 6 plants.
Yeah.
Square footage comes into play, nuisance specific to smell potentially being too close in a residential neighborhood. But those pieces are going to be dealt with that ordinance. I think the first bellwether, as you'll see, will absolutely be retail, and that's going to be coming to us soon.
Does it need to be 4 or 3?
It does need to be 4 with an ordinance.
Okay. Wow. What are your thoughts about that? What are
Well, you asked one of the questions earlier and addressed it in your notes. You have a constituency, and your constituency overwhelmingly said, this is what we want for Del Norte County. It's the board's job in an open and transparent manner to get out there in the community and get the community's opinion on what they meant by that. What did they mean by 64% wanted to support cannabis use in Del Norte County? Did it mean retail? Did it mean commercial? Did it mean just personal use?
Good point.
That's the questions that we're trying to ask. Folks are giving us that input through the working group process. They're also giving us that input through those processes like we have at our board meetings. And then we move forward with that input to try to craft what best fits our particular niche here in Del Norte County.
I think that you just outlined something I had not realized in all of this. When Prop 64 passes, people just assume, hey, cannabis is legal in California, that means that, and then follows a list of assumptions that each individual makes.
Correct.
Like, that means that I can go to the store and I can buy cannabis, I can do this, but really all it said was cannabis is legal in California. You guys figure out what that means for your communities. And so when folks like Linda Sutter go, hey, let's just get it done and get it out there and do it, well, they don't realize that all of those assumptions that are made after that Prop 64 premise about what that will look like, those need to be ironed out.
Sure.
And that's the process that was in place and then set back a couple of months by Bob earlier this year.
Correct.
Which kind of can put everything into doubt like that. But this larger question, and I do want to come back to the cannabis thing then, is what is your role in relation to your constituency then? How do you see that? So I don't think it's any secret. I mean, you work for the Alexanders, and I think Blake is, and he's on the working group, which is amazing because he is not pro-cannabis.
Correct. There's no question about it. Because he grew up in Ferndale where it was problematic for his community. He had friends that used, and it was very difficult to see those friends go downhill. Some it led into other types of drugs, others stayed with it, but the work productivity that he saw going around him was difficult to stomach. It led and crafted his shape as an adult and his opinions.
Of course. I think it's incredibly inclusive.
And everybody has a different story.
I think it's great, though, that somebody's so publicly anti-cannabis.
Correct.
Kira left her purse here. I just noticed that.
It happens. It's not mine.
Exactly. I think that it's great that he's on the working group because that's another voice that makes up our community, and you can't exclude people who aren't for it. You cannot,
because we still have 40% of the people in this community that didn't want it.
Exactly.
And so that's the balance the board needs to find, and having that representation on the working group is important.
So for you, though, as opposed to somebody, I mean, are you on the board to represent your constituency? Are you on the board to lead from some sort of moral standpoint?
No, I have to represent my constituents. That's the whole point of doing this. And without that, I don't know why you sit on the board and take a position that's opposite to what your constituents want to see. The trick now becomes, once you start representing your constituents' viewpoints, is how do you find the best fit? That's the job of a policymaker. And if we can't find that best fit where everybody could get along in this community of a very small population of 28,000 people, where you're going to see your neighbor in the grocery store. You're going to see him when you go over to the transfer station.
Yep.
If we just can't get along, all it does is divide us. And that is bad for a small community atmosphere. Mm-hmm. It doesn't allow us to go in the same direction. It takes every little arrow that represents that person, and it starts spinning those arrows out into the atmosphere, across the sea, down the highway south, up the highway north. But it doesn't bring us into unity, going in one direction and a single focus to make us better.
That's wonderful. Actually, it's nice to hear that said, because so many times, I mean, I'll say a lot. I say things all the time on the radio, on Facebook. I'm trying to remember that I will be standing in the store, and whoever I'm talking to will be standing right behind me.
That's right.
And you don't have to remember that in a big city, and it's and things that an individual might say or do won't lead to gridlock in any way in a bigger place.
Yeah, this is still a small town.
Yeah, this
is still a place where you could break down on the side of the road, and your neighbor's going to pull over, help you fix that tire, or get you to town to get that car serviced. This is still that town, and it will always be that town.
Yeah, and that's why I think all of us live here.
No question about it. That's why I came and stayed.
Yeah. So it's one of the questions I made up off the top of my head yesterday when you asked for questions was, do you see parallels existing in the ideological divisions in Delaware County between those in the nation, or with the nation at large? Are we? Because you just pointed out how we're one very important way that we're not the same as the nation at large, because we're not a large nation, and we see each other, and we have to rub elbows with each other all the time. But you've talked about the vehemence in public discourse and social media and things. Do you see parallels between what's happening in the nation at large, what's happening in Delaware County? And if you do, what does that mean? How do we deal with that? If you don't, why not?
Yeah, that is something that Delaware County tends to be a little sheltered, a little bit more isolated. It's not just from a transportation standpoint. It's from a standpoint is that we've got our own little world here. Mm-hmm. We like it. We want to live in it. We want to make it a better community. So when you're dealing with issues on a national level, let's just take the one that hit the board square in the eyes.
SB 54, huh?
That was one that really took us back a little ways.
Mm-hmm. How so?
Well, here's the problem. We've been discussing this as a nation for quite some period of time. It's a battle that's taking place between the governor of California and the president of the United States. Two people that have strong opinions and strong viewpoints, and more importantly, want to see something done. Clear action. That now starts to trickle down into small communities like that, and fear is created. When necessarily fear might not need to be had in a case like this, because folks are going to go about their business, they're going to continue to go to work, they're going to continue to do their jobs, but if little Johnny comes home one night and sees mom and dad talking, that we might have to go somewhere, and I might have to leave my friends, or mom and dad might not be there when I come home one night. Those are the stories that I'm hearing continuously from folks in the Latino community. When we as public officials help to generate that fear, that's wrong. It's a wedge issue, and more importantly, it doesn't keep our community intact and working together in one direction. And that's why when we as a board started to address this, it wasn't an issue that I kept off. It's one I tackled head on. When asked to put it on, I did. It came on the next agenda. But it wasn't on the next agenda just because Chris Howard wanted to address this. It was requested by Supervisor Berkowitz and Gitlin. They wanted to see it on there. We brought it forward. It's something that I thought would be divisive, and it clearly was. We spent 3.5 hours discussing this one issue and getting input from the community. But when Supervisor Gitlin, on his Facebook page, posts out there, give Chris Howard a call. Here's his cell phone number. Put it on. How many people do you think call my cell phone number out there? And I don't mind people having my cell phone number. I give it out if they ask.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was out there. How many people, Paul, do you think called me?
No clue.
3.
3 people? Were they passionate?
They did not understand what was going on. Okay. So, for instance, one basically said, "Are you supporting this?" Supporting what?
Yeah.
First.
Yeah.
Are you supporting a sanctuary state? No. Every board member said that on the dais during that 3.5 hour conversation. We don't like where this is going either. Any law that weakens our ability of our sheriff to do his job, we're not going to be behind. And that's why we asked the question of the sheriff themselves.
Yeah.
Is this weakening your ability to do your work? The sheriff read a very poignant statement. Actually, he wasn't there. Bill Stevens read it at the time. And we even had Sheriff Wilson there. Both of them came up and basically said, in my 12 years, or in my 3.5 years, has this been a problem for Del Norte County? What was the answer?
No.
No. That was a clear answer. Okay, so now, what's the sense of urgency, guys?
Yeah.
What's the sense of urgency? If this is not an issue that we're dealing with now, why the sense of urgency? Well, our constituents want it. Okay, well, the 3 that contacted me, Roger, said, we don't understand it. Are you supporting this? I said, absolutely not. But at the same time, I'm not going to cause a wedge issue in our county that's not going to allow us to all come together. When it's time, and it will be time at some point, if Jeff Sessions is able to bring this forward to the Supreme Court, which is honestly where this is going to land on the Supremacy Clause, and I think Jesse Davis was well verbalized about that at the board meeting. When this does come forward, it will be battled out in the Supreme Court, and we'll see where it lands. But until that time, does Del Norte County, with limited resources, need to weigh in on this and cause discourse amongst the community? My answer is absolutely not.
Well, discourse among the community, and also incur possible legal things that have to be dealt with and costs that need to be dealt with. There was the letter from the ACLU saying, no, this would put Del Norte County, basically in the same place as Los Alamitos, who were suing. So all kinds of things like that. It's just a waste of time and resources then, right?
Well, it was politically driven. It was clear that it was politically driven in a year that an election's coming up. But what I found extremely interesting is that everybody, including Jerry and myself, or those running against us, Roger Daly, Dave Mason, Jake Smith, Ron Phillips, in Fort Dick at our first candidates forum, what did they call it? A red herring issue.
Wow.
They all agreed it was a red herring issue. Nobody disagreed what this issue was about in an election year. Roger Daly was the first one to say it. And then it was like, oh my goodness. So why are we having this conversation? Let it play out. Absolutely let it play out.
It's not a pressing issue. It actually interfering in it now could set us up and
the great thing about this is that don't think the legislature didn't think about how this would unfold with that proposition, and more importantly, violent felons.
So what do you mean? What do you?
They addressed it.
Yeah,
they addressed it under 36 plus violent felon laws that our sheriff could reach out and contact ICE and do his job and not be restricted in doing so.
Yeah.
So those are the big steps. So when this plays out, and I hope it does never play out in our community, but if it plays out, our sheriff will have that test. Can he reach out under Prop 54 and contact ICE and do his job with those violent felons?
Your district probably, am I safe in assuming that your district probably has the highest percentage of Hispanic residents?
I'd say they're probably 22+% in District 3.
And is that higher than the others?
I
mean, maybe you don't know. You're only supposed to know your own, district, but I would assume.
I would assume also.
And what have you heard? What have you just sort of hinted at it earlier, but what have you heard from Hispanic constituency?
Not happy.
Yeah.
They're not. But mostly it's come from teachers in the schools.
Really? How?
And my wife's in the school district, but teachers giving me feedback. Kids are scared, especially kids at the grade school level.
Wow.
That mom and dad might be taken away.
Oh my God.
So they're not stupid. Kids are actually incredibly intelligent. They're smart. They pay attention to reactions on their parents' faces. And so when they go home and they might see mom and dad watching the TV, and this is the rhetoric of the night on national news, that people are being deported, picked up, and they might be illegal, that's problematic for them because now they have established friends and relations here in our county. They feel like they're a part of us. Yeah, it hurts. So when a teacher approaches me on this issue and says, this is what's going on, does it make me uncomfortable? It makes me extremely uncomfortable to know that there's a child suffering.
Yeah. A couple of minor things we've just touched on before, and I just want to get you, I guess, on the record about it. First off, so you don't sit back and wring your hands and try to figure out ways to keep things that, say, Bob or Roger want on the agenda off of the agenda.
I never have.
Okay.
I never have. And I would challenge him to name one issue that hasn't made our agenda.
Okay.
It's always a timing issue. The staff loads things up. We're in a great position as Board of Supervisors to be policymakers. but the agenda is really driven by the staff's workload and what they're capable of doing. If there's something that needs to come forward to us for approval and consideration, and the board member wants that on ASAP, and staff doesn't have time to address it, bring us a board report, something that we could weigh in on and consider. Okay. And if that doesn't happen, we'll generally wait until the next meeting until that board member can bring us that agenda item.
So is it, I don't know, are you just getting phone calls and not reacting to the phone calls? You know, are you looking for that documentation? Are you looking to go through these procedures to get something on the agenda in a fully informed fashion? And is that what they're griping about when they gripe about their inability to get things on the agenda?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. I know. I don't want to. That's a silly question to ask you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but okay.
I don't know. There hasn't been one item that's been requested that hasn't been put on that agenda.
Okay. All right. The other little thing we discussed beforehand too. Travel expenses. There's a lot of things online about, the $12,000 to go to Japan and all of this other, and you should be paying for it out of your pocket. We're a poor county and all of this. What do you make of that? Is there a benefit with the sister city kind of thing and the connections we've made with the folks in Japan? Is there a benefit for us?
Whether you want to talk about Washington, D.C., whether you want to talk about Sacramento, whether you want to talk about Riches and Takata, Japan, there's clearly a benefit. Let's start with Riches and Takata, Japan. Okay. Something I'm extremely passionate about because I've actually got a chance to experience that. I couldn't stop crying for a week after returning from Riches and Takata because of the stories that those that lived through that disaster told. And it was something that changed my life 100%. Wow. And I clearly haven't been able to communicate that to people since I've returned. Blake Enscore, Heidi Keim have tried very hard to put into words what we experienced, but just until you're on the ground, you're not going to have that sense of destruction of not only property but human life and what those people live with now. I'm not sure if you were at our sister city agreement and signing, but that was a very interesting story that Mayor Toba told. And he told basically a story of losing his wife. Wow. Who basically, he said, and now lives with the guilt, you're okay where you're at, honey. You don't need to move. But the tsunami wave turned into 40 plus feet. Yeah. Covering and inundating the entire area she was in.
Oh, my gosh.
He now has to live with that guilt between himself and his children, knowing that he could have potentially saved her life by saying, no, honey, get out.
Oh, man.
So that's not the only time you heard those stories. You heard them from other city council people. Everybody in that community was impacted with the loss of life. Wow. Everybody. It did not untouch one person. So how do you communicate that in Del Norte County when you return from a place like Riches and Takata and you as an elected official have the ability just to save one life, change one person's direction, and allow them to connect with a story that can really face us anytime soon, whether it's a Cascadia event or whatever, where we only have 10 minutes to react to get to high ground, and our community is not ready.
I lay awake at night kind of afraid
and
of all
so we need to learn from communities like that because we are the tsunami capital of the world right here on the Pacific Coast. This is where it's going to hit. We have a great group of folks in the city and the county that work on our operational services, OES, to make sure that we're prepared, to make sure we could deal with a situation like that. But when your constituents are complacent or don't think it's going to happen, it's not top of mind, how do you then generate that interest that's going to allow them to potentially save their life or their child's life in case of an emergency that takes place in 10 minutes? What are they going to tell them? So if we could learn something from the mistakes that Riches and Takata made, every dime we spend, whether it's $12,000 that's spent by the city council or potentially $3,000 that's spent by the county to save that one life, what is a life worth to you? Because to me, $3,000, $12,000 more I'd spend to save just one life, to teach that lesson that this is how we could avoid these accidents in the future.
What I remember most about just following on Facebook with the trip was a picture that Brad Keim posted, standing at the foot of a sign.
That's correct.
The 40-foot tall sign.
I stood there.
Yeah,
I have
and
stood there on that sign.
the water was up over the top of that sign.
That's correct.
That just, wow.
Yeah, it'll blow you away. And my hope is, and I just got word last night that Tony Reed will be traveling with us.
Oh, good. Oh,
on
nice.
this trip.
Cool.
Day to day, this is a man that's very passionate about it because he lived through the tsunami in 2011 in Fort Bragg, and they already had a sister city relationship there.
Oh, wow.
And that city was also impacted. The community of Fort Bragg, as Tony told me these stories over the year, reacted with monetary donations exceeding $400,000 almost instantly because of that sister city relationship to bring resources to that community that was impacted in 2011. We don't know what this relationship is going to develop to, but we do know our kids led us to this. It wasn't coincidence. It was something that happened where that boat, Kamami, floated across the ocean, landed on our shore, and our kids took it upon themselves to bring it back. We're going to learn something from this. I don't know what it looks like right now, but we are going to learn some great things from this. And if it all is across the ocean is learning from mistakes that they made, it's going to be a beautiful story.
That's really an interesting thing. What about, okay, so it makes sense. You got to travel to Sacramento. What about traveling to Washington?
It's our job. It's 100% our job. To say it's not our job and not to spend resources on it, we'll go back to the way it was, where we're not paying attention to the outside world that's affecting us on a daily basis.
Exactly. Wow.
So, yeah. Here's how it works, guys. We've got money that comes down from the federal government. Oftentimes it's passed through the state and eventually reaches our coffers. And it's a minimal amount, but we need to fight for those dollars. There's big things that impact us, like secure rural schools and roads. You might have heard Supervisor Berkowitz talk about this. He was kind of instrumental in playing a role in that when he was serving on the school board, making sure in Washington, D.C., this was known. And he would travel as a member of the school board to make sure our voice was heard, to ensure that those payments from the loss of those Forest Service grounds and that production and harvest of timber off those grounds came back into the county. Now, Congress has annually fought to appropriate those dollars back into the Pacific states, where those dollars from timber harvest are no longer realized on those Forest Service grounds. We absolutely have to continue fighting for it because right now, the President of the United States doesn't want to fund it. So what if Del Norte County loses that money? If you think it looks bad right now for our roads department and our schools, what do you think it's going to look like when we lose those funds?
What's the percentage of the budget right now that comes from that?
From the roads budget? Well over $1 million.
Wow.
For the schools, I don't know what their impact would be. It's huge. It's absolutely huge. So whether you're talking about essential air service with our airport, whether you're talking about federal highways and last chance grade, which is something we've been advocating for and will continue to advocate for, that alternative route's going to cost us over $1 billion potentially.
Yeah.
They need to know our name, they need to know our faces, and they need to feel the emotion and the empathy from our community if they don't fund it. And that personal relationship is what really drives politics. There's no question in my mind.
Did you learn that from Finnegan, or did you know that coming in?
You know, I don't know. I think I learned it from my mom.
Really? Is that what it is? Yeah, just FaceTime, you know?
No, my mom was all about personal relationships. Because you could help your passion, people will feel. And if you're passionate about something, it could be infectious. So, you know, Mom always told me, get along with folks the best you can.
Oh, wow.
But, yeah, she's driven the conversation with me many times.
Okay, with all due respect to your mom, how do you take that then into the climate in the Flynn administration building with this board?
Well, you know, oftentimes I've been sitting here in the last 2 years in the position as chair. And you've seen it, Paul. It's been a challenge. It's absolutely been a challenge because we've got opinion on both sides of many issues. But at the same time, I look back, and I've taken a look back at 2017, and there was very, very few issues that there was disagreement or discord over. And so we've gotten a lot done, which staff absolutely needs to do their job. But there's some of those issues that get extremely controversial, and we've had many of those issues.
Those are the ones that people pay the most attention to.
Well, they are because it could be fun and exciting for folks to watch debate and discussion taking place, but it also detracts on the work getting done.
Okay, tell me a boring story about everybody agreeing on the Board of Supervisors and affecting genuine good for the community.
we all agree 100% that we have to get an alternative route around last chance grade.
Yeah.
There's nobody that hasn't agreed to get that piece moving forward. Another boring story, cost of healthcare at Sutter Coast Hospital.
Mm-hmm.
There is not one person in an elected position in this county, whether you're on the healthcare district board, whether you're on the city council, or whether in your board of supervisors, that hasn't written a note to Sutter Health in Sacramento saying, get the prices down, folks.
How much change can you affect with that, though?
Huge.
How?
Huge. Our assemblyman in Sacramento could say, hey, let's get to the table and figure out how to change this pricing structure. And you can begin to hold folks' feet to the fire as a not-for-profit organization.
So how I guess I'm curious, how does that work? How would they be, I mean, what's to keep Sutter from just going no?
Well, look what they've done so far under that pressure.
Yeah, good point.
Have they not changed the emergency room provider that was fleecing this community and that made national news doing so, not only here in Del Norte County, but up and down the coast and also across the state, AmCare? Did they not do and change that healthcare provider? They could have chosen to just move along on their merry way and let us get fleeced in the emergency room for a simple procedure. Could have, but no, they didn't.
Yeah.
They took that step and changed. They've also come to us and basically said, okay, we hear you. We know we want to provide cardiac care. We know we want to provide infusion. We know we want to provide dialysis. They might not have to do that, right? They're a private organization. Not for profit, but they're private.
Yeah.
They can make the decision to invest here, or they can make the decision to move on. What have they shown us here in the last couple months?
That's true, that they're working
They've made the decision to invest. I don't think they would have done that if they wanted to get the heck out of here.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we have to hold them accountable. And the board's going to do that. If I continue to get complaints from my constituents that the cost of their health care is driving them on a 2.5-hour drive over to Medford, or an hour-and-a-half drive down to Humboldt County to get service, then there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Why is that cost of care so high? If our board or our city council or our healthcare district could drive those costs down with the communication to understand what Sutter's position is, why those costs are where they're at, or what our constituents' concerns are, and we could meet somewhere in the middle just to get those costs down 30, 40%, that's going to make a big difference to lives of people here in Del Norte County, and that's what we're fighting for.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you're right.
But we got to come to the table. At the same time, we still have to come to the table. Who's going to put that pressure on if it's not your electeds to change the way business is working?
Yeah, yeah. Exactly.
It's us.
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting.
Buck stops here.
And that everybody is agreeing on this. That's fantastic. And yeah, you don't.
So there
get
you
that kind
go.
of stuff.
2 examples of, hey, the board's together.
How do you keep people focused on long-term things like last chance grade, which is going to take, hopefully not decades like everybody is saying, but how do you fight the perception of there being inaction on this? Because everybody thinks it's like, oh, you guys aren't out there with a shovel, so it's not happening. Yeah. How do you fight that perception of inaction and try to keep people
talking about it?
Yeah.
You keep talking about it. You have it as an agendized item on every agenda or an update, just like we do with the Local Transportation Commission, which addresses this every month. It's an item for discussion. So people know there's action and movement. But this thing's moving faster than the timeline was published that said this project would be completed in 2030 something.
Yeah.
It's moving far quicker. And we know it's moving far quicker because not only is our congressman pushing on it at a federal level, our state member, Senator McGuire, and our assembly member, Assemblyman Wood, are pushing on it for us also. And I know this because when I travel to SAC, Caltrans is going, you again? That's top of mind.
That's good. Yeah.
And we know our previous Caltrans director, Malcolm Droughty, what were the 3 things that was keeping him up at night?
I don't know.
Number 1, whether or not his employees got home safely.
Oh, wow.
Right? Number 2, last chance grade.
Whoa.
Last chance for the state director, Caltrans, to say that this is his number 1 priority in the state. He meant it. But guess what? 3 months ago, Lori Berman, who is the director of the California Transportation Commission, transitioned into Malcolm's seat.
Okay.
Brand new director of Caltrans. Lori Cowan, Supervisor Cowan, and I have been on her and Matt Brady, who's our regional director in Humboldt County for Region 1. We have been on them to get her up here to experience Last Chance Grade. Lori Berman, guess when she's coming?
I don't know when.
End of this month.
Right on.
On the 30th. We are going to take her up there. We're going to get her familiar with Del Norte County issues. That's the job of an elected person here.
Yeah, good point.
Yep.
That's great. Yeah, because I don't like driving over it. It's just, and I go through and I think every time I go over that one bit, I'm going, is this lower than last time?
In 2017, we had a lot of crazy argument around this in 2017, very early on we were going to speed this up or not do something or do something, right?
And Chuck wanting to go up and just Del Norte.
Everybody was entitled to their opinion. Everybody, more importantly, wanted to achieve the same goal.
True.
But we needed to know how best to get there, and we didn't need a distraction doing that. But we do know, just from the actions of the state of California right now, that they advanced the geotechnical funds in the form of $5 million last year. And just recently, as Senator McGuire announced here at the Economic Summit, $5 million to start the biological work on the CEQA and NEPA process. That was huge. That is unprecedented. They don't start biological work before the whole project's funded. And as we know, it's a $55 million biological process for this alternative route.
Wow.
So for them to start it so they could get a jump, it's unprecedented for Caltrans. That means they're paying attention to little old Del Norte County.
That's a good point. Yeah, and somebody's doing their job. Excellent.
Right. And it's our job to keep reminding them to do their job.
So, okay. You're reelected and you're off and running the next 4 years. Just a hypothetical question. What would you like to have happen in the next 4 years? What's your vision for the immediate future and continuing the work that you're doing now?
Well, we're not done with all our projects.
Oh, sure.
More importantly, we still need to see economic growth here. What reminded me of this community and where we're at when I first moved here in '94 is that we were changing as an economy. We were changing from a commercial timber and fishing industry to something different, and we didn't know what that different was. But we know we needed to change.
Do we know now what that different is?
We don't.
Yeah.
We know we want business here, but how do you get business here if you don't have the infrastructure components here to support them? We know the Council of Economic Advisors address this. What's going to take business to be successful here in Del Norte County, and that's where we came up with that moniker has199.com, which stood for the harbor, the airport, sewer, Highway 199, and broadband. They identified those components that the government organizations could get behind, go in a single direction, and support that infrastructure development. We're almost there with all of them.
Yeah.
The only one we're held up right now is 199, and it's in court.
Okay. I was totally against that all along, all the time, on environmental reasons and on aesthetic reasons and things, and just totally against doing anything like that that could impact the Smith River because, and again, something everybody in Del Norte County agrees upon.
Correct.
We are blessed with the Smith River. And even the 197 aspect of it, and that's where we get our water, and I don't want the trucks going through. It wasn't until you guys, and I think it was you, but I think other candidates and Jerry chimed in, explained the STAA regulations during the forum at Crescent.
The red route.
And I'm like, well, yeah, it's basically a zero-sum gain as far as the amount of traffic going through. It's just that they'll be able to bring more things with the amount of traffic happening just because of the difference in the trucks.
And that's a little bit misnomer also.
Okay.
We're regulated in the state of California based on the weight, not the length of the vehicle.
Yeah.
And so in this instance, our hay trucks at Alexander Dairy aren't going to get any longer because we're already maxed at the 80,000 pounds that those trucks are carrying.
It doesn't matter.
It does not matter. And that's gross vehicle weight. That's not just the weight
cargo.
of the cargo in that truck. So this perceived vision of these longer vehicles, I don't see it happening. More importantly, I don't see it happening with the increased growth of the number of vehicles coming on those trucks. And that's why Senator McGuire absolutely said during his town hall this year, Highway 199 and 197 have to happen, and it has to happen soon.
And he is an environmentally friendly congressman. So
Senator, yeah,
Senator,
absolutely.
excuse me. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I was
absolutely.
McGuire. I thought you meant Huffman. I thought it was going that way. Yeah.
No, and that's why he said when asked by Friends of Del Norte, Eileen Cooper, what do you believe on 199? And he said, absolutely, 100% has to be fixed, and it has to be funded.
Yeah, yeah, and the threats that are perceived out there, the threats to the ecosystem and everything. They're there every day already, and it's not going to change.
We followed a course of action in 2006 and 2007 for money through the California Transportation Commission through the STAA Red Route. Mm-hmm. That was the only money available to this county at the time where we had to advance our STIP dollars, our Strategic Transportation Improvement dollars. Okay. We had to advance that out of our own budget to help get that project started. We advocated for it down in Sacramento. Everybody did. It was a joint effort. Council of Economic Advisors, myself through the Chamber of Commerce, our county supervisors, David Finnegan, Jerry Hemmingson, all plowing forward on this issue. Mm-hmm. Constantly trying to find a mechanism that was going to allow us to improve those pinch points on Highway 199. Mm-hmm. Caltrans led us to this solution because this is where we could forward the dollars that they might not be able to allocate through the Transportation Commission's other budget pieces because this was our project.
Okay.
These are the funds that were found. This is how we advanced it, and we tied up that money for 6 years in doing so, only to get it to the point of awarding a contract and getting litigated against.
Mm-hmm. Well, getting litigated against.
So we've been in federal court now for 8 years.
Where's that stand? Where's the lawsuit right now? How
back in court.
Wow.
It just got out in February, and it was relitigated against by Friends of Del Norte and the Center for Biological Diversity.
Wow. Okay. All
so
right.
We're back in court, folks.
Well, I know that just covering you and covering this this campaign has given me a new insight into that issue. I think I need to follow that up then with the Friends of Del Norte and try to understand exactly what they're trying to accomplish. With
Absolutely.
That because, it seems like a very important part. And one of you talk about the economic development then. So we are just about out of time.
Wait, I thought we had 3 hours today.
3 hours if you come at 10.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And if you want,
Fair enough.
we could do the 3 hours, but I don't know. I saw what you look like after the 3 hours of discussion at SB 54 on that day. When Jesse came up to do his update on the working group, and everybody's just rubbing their faces and they're, oh my gosh, I can't believe this.
It was a 6.5 hour meeting, and I believe I set a new record.
A new record, really?
Yes.
Wow.
6.5 hour discussion that day.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay. What I want to do, we should continue this discussion at least, but let's do this at another time. Let me wrap up now just by asking, what do you want to? How do we wrap up? What would you like to end with? Is there something we didn't cover with? Something that didn't get said? Something you'd like to reiterate?
You know, you asked some great questions. I think maybe next time we convene, folks might want to know what my background is here.
Okay, we didn't talk about that at all.
And I haven't been able to address it. There's obviously certain things that form my opinion here in this community. But the most important things is that when you go to the voting booth, remember that I've been doing this a long time. I've been doing this out of my own pocket for a long time with the Chamber of Commerce and driving things that if I can't go at home at night and look my kids in the eye and said I didn't do the right thing, then I'm not doing a good job for this community. That's the bottom line.
Well said. How are you boys doing? How old are they now?
Bryce is doing great. He's my oldest. He just turned 16. He just got his driver's license. Watch out, Crescent City. It could be problematic, but he's a good-looking kid. He's an overachiever, that one. He's in track, he's in band, and he's doing the pole vault. He's trying to beat Taylor Duncan's record.
Wow.
12.6 he P-D'd an invitational this year over at Grants Pass. Took first place.
Oh, man.
And so
that's impressive.
He's going to go for a higher jump this weekend down in McKinleyville at the Invitational.
Wow.
And little Gabe, he's going to follow on his footsteps. He's another overachiever, loves basketball, loves track, straight A student.
How old's Gabe now?
Gabe is now in 7th grade, will be in 8th,
okay.
13.
Man.
Yeah, they're 3 years apart, but both great kids.
That's a no. I just remember there's so many
soccer
kids.
pictures.
All the soccer pictures, exactly.
Yeah, right there taking those.
Well, thanks for coming in. And yeah, let's get together again before the election. We'll if you've got time.
We'll make it for you.
Okay.
We'll make it for you, Paul.
Wonderful. Let me wake up our computer here. It's been sitting here for so long. All right. Thanks again to Supervisor Chris Howard for coming in and
Thank
talking
you, Paul.
all over the place, man. And there were so many questions left. So yeah, we'll get again. And I have to extend the invitation to your challenger to offer the same sort of thing. So we can have Sam Straight is on the weekends, and he's reached out to the candidates and the challengers, and he's having them on. I don't know. I love Sam. I think Sam's a little more partisan. I'd like to get everybody coming through the Friday show and talk to him, because Sam comes in and he's very partisan. Is all I can say. Very, very much so, and it's a lot of fun. We had, and just as an aside, I guess we have 2 hours of political talk on Sundays. We have the Snowflake Hour, which is the liberal hour, and I take part in that with another guy. And then we have Sam Straight, Conversations with Sam. So it's like both sides. It's like both sides of the lunatic fringe is how we push it. And I get off of the air this week, and I go inside, and I was doing something, making a bed, I'll check my phone. It was about a half an hour into Sam's show, and I've got 2 missed calls from Roger Gitlin. And so I listened to the thing, and Roger's recuperating at home from back surgery. He's all medicated up and listening to the radio, and he was trying to call in and get on the air. So we called him back, and we got him on the air. And it was a charming conversation. Sam was here doing his show live and got Roger on. But so yeah, I'll have Roger on when he's running again. But he's got to promise to take medication first because it was really, really nice. All right, let's get back into the music. Thanks again, Chris Howard. We will get you back on before the June 5th election and talk more about that. And he's mentioned something to Jerry. I've never had Jerry on either.
Oh, he'd love to be here.
Good, excellent. That's good to hear. We'll get all of that together. We're going to get out of the way. Sean Waddell is sitting in the kitchen saying, "Get out of the microphone. I've got a show to do." He's got 3 hours of jazz and blues, take you up to 4 o'clock, and at that time it's Twango Bango, Disco David O'Brien, and that's followed by the Fallout Shelter with our own fall guy, Jason Fallman, who's finally up and walking again. We're good and we're happy to see that.